Welcome everybody to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 160. Here with Chelsea, Hopkins, and Umana. We've been off for a couple of weeks, guys. Obviously for good reasons. We're traveling. We got a lot of things going on that we're going to talk about. But this is a big week. We got the Ballislife All-American game coming up on May 6th, Saturday in Southern California, and we've been all over the country. So, Ani, how's it going?
Man, I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Oh yeah,
a lot of traveling, but it's been some good stuff. How about you?
I'm doing good. I've been doing good. Got back from Phoenix for session 2 of EYBL. Obviously, the spring live period is now complete. Chelsea, how was your tournament? So I know the girls are in live as well. Did they go both weekends live, or is there a different weekend that there's a second live period?
Actually, the last weekend was a live period. So my program, the Mob Premier, we are based out of Colorado, but we have multiple EYBL teams, and I don't have an EYBL team personally. So I'm coaching 15 and under. So it was a live period for my girls, but most of the coaches were with the EYBL teams, not in the same tournament that I was in. So we played in Oakland. We did solid. I was only with the girls like maybe a week or a week and a half before we actually started playing because I came late from overseas. So we have definitely some adjustments and some learning to do. I want to put in my own stuff. Our program, we all kind of run the same plays, at least for a basis. And then after that, as a coach, I can, kind of tweak it and do my own thing. So we actually have another opportunity this weekend in Vegas. The EYBL teams will be in Cali. So we're going to kind of switch places and we'll be playing here. So it's exciting times, man. I'm in full retirement mode. But I'm getting the coaching thing going and it's been good so far.
That's great. Yeah. You settled in a little bit now. We're also going to talk about that in a future pod, like, your transition, but everything's pretty good. You going forward.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it's really hit me yet. Like I'm doing kind of what I do every summer, even before I wasn't retired, hanging out, watching NBA, coaching my young girls up. So maybe in the fall, it'll become more real when my friends who still play, kind of head across the waters. But hopefully in the fall, I'll be starting a new job myself. So it'll be able to, kind of take my mind off things.
Sure. So like we said, this Saturday is Cerritos College. Ballislife game hasn't been on for a few years because of COVID and other things in LA County. Obviously, LA County was pretty restrictive. The rosters are on ballislife.com. Again, it's a lot of good players from around the country. Just wanted to tell people they can get tickets at ballislifeallamerican.com. There's a couple codes. There's a $5 off ticket promo. Use BIL5OFF. Once again, that code is BIL5, the number OFF. So it's a good code. And Ani, just wanted to get into it. What are you looking for most about the game? Instead of it's not including you being a part of the production and being on it. What do you just from the game itself? What do you see out there?
Well, it's been like 4 years since the game. Yeah. So just excited to kind of be there and actually watching it, like, McCain and Edwards, like some of the guys like Jace Posey, seeing some of the Texas guys out there. I'm just excited to see, the players just compete, and like in that environment and, guys get to show off, like, the All-Star games is fun because it's like you get to see guys show off other parts of the game that you may not always see, right? In a more structured scholastic setting. So that's why I just excited to see just those guys kind of showing their overall game.
Yeah, me too. Just to see some of the guys that are a little bit more exciting. You know what I mean? A little more in a little more laid back, open atmosphere. Did you catch anything from Iverson? What was the buzz at Iverson? What did people say?
Didn't really get to catch much, but it was good. Like, you got guys like Tyler Smith out there that was doing really good. Cohen Carr, who we're going to see this weekend, just really showing his athleticism. I don't think people realize how athletic he was. He is. So guys like him, I think the shooter that's going to Alabama, heard a lot of good things about Walter. So, but overall, I heard like the practices were competitive. The game I got to watch some of the game. It was good. But they said they competed, like in the practice and everything. They really competed, which was good. was good. You know, we always hear about the McDonald's practices being competitive, but you know, seeing that in that atmosphere too, that those kids were competing was good to see.
Great. And Chelsea, are we going to see you? Are you going to make an appearance at the Ball Dogs All-American game on the 7th, the next day? So we got a busy weekend coming up. Ani, we're going to try to hit both of them, and
yeah, we're going to get them. We're going to get to it.
So Chelsea, are you going to be able to get there? What's the word on Ball Dogs?
I mean, that's the plan. I'm actually supposed to be a judge in like the dunk contest or something like that. But as I said, I'm coaching this weekend, so that's obviously my priority. But hopefully on Sunday, you know, if I can get an early championship game in, you know, I'm gonna speak it now. You know, my girls, hopefully we just do our thing, have a little 11 o'clock championship game. Then I'll be there. I'll be there with my guys to see what's going on.
Got you. You know, Chelsea, in many respects, me and Ani were down in the Final Four, and in many respects, people were like, you know, the girls' Final Four was where it's at. You know, everybody was like, the girls' Final Four is a hot ticket. People are talking about it. So what's going on the travel ball circuit? I mean, obviously you're coaching the younger girls, but you know, are you seeing any of this influence and excitement that we saw during the girls or women's NCAA tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really good times for just girls basketball, women's basketball in general. I think we're seeing a very positive trend. You know, we've talked a lot about just the publicity, you know, and the, you know, kind of the narratives that were circulating around the women's Final Four. But we also talked about how all publicity is kind of good publicity, I think, for the women's game. You know, we talk about high school, and I've had the opportunity to now coaching the last couple of years to see some of these up and coming girls on the circuit. And, you know, I just think we're headed in the right direction. When I look at the upcoming 2023 class, there is some very, very talented girls that I think could just kind of fit right in with the likes of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And when I say that, I think of the #1 overall pick in the 2023 class. That's Juju Watkins out of Sierra Canyon. You know, she's on the women's team at Bronny's school. This girl is as good as advertised. And if you want to talk about just notoriety, she's had Chris Brown at her games, 2 Chainz at her games. This is a high school girls basketball player getting these type of people sitting courtside at her games. So I can make a case, you know, she doesn't have any NIL deals yet, but she will have a lot. I can make a case that she has more, you know, notoriety than a lot of these girls, high profile college girls already.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's a 6-foot guard. She's headed to USC next year. Absolutely must see TV. Nothing she can't do on the court. I personally think she's the most complete high school basketball player that I've been able to see in the last, you know, several years. And she's going to make an instant impact in college. So, you know, we have players like that coming up. I look at, you know, we just talked about the McDonald's game. Malaysia Foley. She is a dynamic point guard who's headed to South Carolina. She's 5'6", but if you watch the McDonald's game, she put on an absolute show. She's a highlight reel. Any way you want it, flashy, athletic, can dribble, can shoot it. So when I look at players like that, like these girls are going to continue the growth of, you know, women's college basketball, the excitement of it. And that's not even to mention the players that we still have in the women's college game right now that are still, you know, Angel Reese, she's headed into her junior year. You know, Caitlin Clark is going to be a senior. Paige UConn, she, you know, has 2 more years because her eligibility increased after she had her ACL tear. So we just have a lot of really, really talented girls coming up. And, you know, I've even had the opportunity to check out a couple girls in the 2024 class that I just want to shout out really quick. The #1 player in 2024 is Jelani Cambridge. She's a point guard from the Ensworth School in Tennessee. She's 5'6", small, but super shifty, crafty, great creator, plays with great pace. A great finisher to be super small, just has, you know, great feel, floaters, any kind of way you want to finish around the rim. And I had the opportunity to check her out. She played in the U17 World Games with Team USA. And although she's uncommitted at the moment, I think that this kid has star level potential at the next level. So, you know, she'll have, you know, 1 more year in high school, obviously, then we'll see where she ends up in the college. And she ends up in college the following year. South Carolina already has a commitment from a forward, Joyce Edwards, 6'2", Camden High School from South Carolina, big, strong, just a great player. She's going to come in and make a huge impact for Dawn Staley right away. And just another player that's a little bit down on the rankings board that I personally like, that I just wanted to shout out, is Olivia Olson. She's a point guard, 6 foot, very heady, very smart, coming out of Minnesota, and she's actually committed to Michigan. So the future is very bright. These are just some of my favorite players, obviously top players in the class as well. But I think women's basketball is headed in the right direction. And even when Caitlin and Angel and those girls leave, we have some girls that are going to come in and pick up right where they left off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, when we talk about Juju Watkins, she'll obviously be local. You know, shout out. She's from Southern California, Watts particularly, and our guy Harold Abens wrote a nice piece about her. Check it out when you get a chance on CalHighSports.com. As the Miss Basketball for the state of California, she's obviously won every national award, but she's also won the local awards as well.
Have you guys
talking about her story?
Have you seen her play? Have you guys seen her play?
I've seen her play.
I've seen highlights. Yeah, I've seen highlights.
I've seen her play.
She like that.
Yeah.
She like that.
Ooh, I didn't catch her in her best game this year.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, it's the game they lost to Etowah, and I'm sorry, it's the game they came back and they beat Etowah for the sectionals, but Etowah came back and won the state championship. Again, as Ani says, he can't follow these California, playoffs.
Yeah,
so they played. They won and then they came back. Etowah came back and won the state championship. Shout out to Etowah. But yeah, she's got to be one of the best players I've ever seen, even in an off game.
In a bad game,
yeah, even in an off game. Just the size, handle. She moves different. Again, that's Lisa Leslie's up there. I got to see your girl Jasmine Thomas and Maya Moore at the Nike Skills Academy. I just remember because the boys were there, Chelsea. So I was like, Maya Moore was pretty special. So she might be, she's probably in that group. Again, we're not going to break it all down right now, but she's in that group. I just remember Jasmine was the best point guard there, but like Maya was on another level. She's just on another level. Like, this girl's on another level. I'm not trying to think of anybody else in between those girls. Diana Taurasi, but Diana Taurasi she transformed her whole body from high school. She's in much better shape, and obviously she played shows because she's played in 20 years. But she's like transformed her body completely. But like Juju Watkins is a special player, so we'll be looking forward to seeing her.
Yeah, she moves different.
Yeah. Some of the girls that should be good. We're gonna have a girls' game, so that, like you said, Chelsea, it's just growing. We felt we had to have a girls' game. These girls are going all over the place. I'm just looking at the roster now. Yep. Connecticut, Notre Dame, Baylor, Texas, Duke. Like this high level. This girls' event should be high level. One girl is going to be committing at the game, Ani, so we'll get a chance to see that.
Okay.
Local. So, we're going to enjoy ourselves just like we are in this pod. But let's jump to something else. I guess we'll jump on the guy side when we talk about Player of the Year. Obviously, Juju Watkins is National Player of the Year. That's not a surprise to anybody on the girls' side. But on the boys' side, we doing the Player of the Year tracker, Ani, which we've been doing 16. I've been doing it 16 years now. Seems pretty like the 16 years have just zipped by. Brandon Jennings was the first honoree on the one where we actually had the panel pick. It was pretty. It looked like it was going to be him, and he had a dominant season at his senior year at Oak Hill. I know Chelsea talks about how great he was that summer leading up to it and the summer before, but this year was a little different because, again, we don't want to beat a dead horse. It was more wide open. This 223 class, it's up and down. People talk, they need work. Oh, how good are they going to be in the draft? That type of thing. So, Ani, why don't you just talk about the result of it real quick, and get your reaction to the results as we talk about who the winner is.
Right. Yeah. So Cameron Boozer, 225 winning getting a couple more votes over Isaiah Collier. Thought that was interesting. Obviously those type of for that award, you normally see that senior get it, but it just kind of shows how special Cameron is, right? With his size and his ability to score, and he can do like a lot of different things, like the shooting, the handle. He's really impressive. There's a reason he's arguably the number one player in his class, right? And 1 and 2 are like in a totally different tier. Really 1, 2, and 3, but him and Coop are. And then you got Rod Holland who plays third. Obviously, I know I got to, I know Ron really good with 71 votes. But, like seeing how he kind of hurt, with Duncanville not having like a postseason. But I thought he really, but, his seeing him at McDonald's, Hoop Summit and everything, like, he's been, arguably the best player there. And then, DJ Wagner, who's arguably the best player in that class as well. But just interesting to see a guy like Cameron Boozer win it, right? 25 and 225 do it. But I think it does show like how special, a player he is.
Correct. And I think you're right about that. Why again, I guess that's more me than you two. It's like, well, instead of knocking these 23s, let's just talk about how good Cameron is, right?
Right.
There don't need to be like put anybody else down. I mean, Isaiah Collier would have been from Wheeler. Obviously, he's going to USC. He's going to come out west. He would have been a fine choice. I guess he's the senior of the year. Again, the public doesn't know this, but these we just got the voting results in over the weekend, so we'll put it out there this week. And that was good, Chelsea. What do you think? You think obviously, you ain't been following all the 16 years we're doing it, but for a sophomore to win it is not a big deal. If he's the best player, he's the best player. Do you think it's too much pressure? Well, we've done this before, or no? It's fine.
No, I think to Ani's point, it just kind of shows how special Cameron Boozer is. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I will say, like, I haven't heard too much crazy talk about Cameron Boozer being the next LeBron, next, KD. Sure. I've heard these other type of crazy comparisons with people in the past. Amani Bates, when he was coming up, he was the next KD. Yeah. And because I haven't heard these narratives with Cam Boozer, I think that it's great for him. If he's the best player and deserving of the award, I think that's absolutely great. And if he can just focus on basketball, that's where the pressure comes when we put these narratives on these kids to be something that they're not. And the comparisons too are like the cream of the crop of the NBA players that we have. So I think that's where, things get a little bit mixed up for these kids. Cameron Boozer is on pace. He won this award as a sophomore. He's going to have 2 more years in high school. He's going to be incredible. 1 year in college off to the NBA unless the rule changes. But the pressure comes from the narratives that us media and the people on the outside looking in put on these kids. And because I personally haven't heard that, I think that he's well deserving of the award. I think that he's right on pace in terms of just, his potential and his growth as a player. And I think that, if he got the award, I think he's deserving of it. So I know we've seen, crazy comparisons in the past, but in my personal opinion, I think that's what kind of sets these kids up for failure. Not necessarily their game, but just the expectations that they have right out the gate. And I know we're expecting Cam to be special, but I haven't heard anything outlandish that should, kind of knock him off track in the future. So,
right.
That makes sense. Go ahead, Ani.
Yeah, but I think guys are kind of learned a lesson with that. I mean, most recently, like Amani Bates, right? And Amani has recovered, at Eastern Michigan and doing his thing, but you see a little bit of it, but I think people are kind of learned a lesson from that. Like, I probably shouldn't compare a 14 or 15-year-old LeBron James or Kevin Durant, right? Doesn't end very well. Hasn't gone that way since, every time they do that. But Cameron Boozer, he's a really, really good player. Got to see him in EYBL last weekend and stuff like that. Like, just how effortless he makes he makes plays, and all of a sudden you think he probably has like 20 and 10, you see like 40 and 18, like it's just crazy, right? So really, really good player, and I think he does deserve it.
No doubt. Let's just talk about the voting, like you said, Ani, real quick. Interestingly, nobody appeared on all 10 ballots. There's 10 ballots, 10 voters. Some of them have their quirks or things they like about a player or don't. I'm assuming the person who didn't vote for Boozer just didn't think a sophomore should be the winner.
Right.
We're not going to give it to a sophomore. So I understand that. So he had 84 out of 100 points, which is not an overwhelming number for the winner usually. Sometimes the winner has 91, 90. Brandon had 98. Ben Simmons, perfect 100.
Wow.
So it's happened before where the guy's got perfect 100. So Isaiah Collier had 76 points. You got Ron Holland, who reopened his recruitment, not going to Texas anymore, or is not committed to Texas anymore. 71, 9 ballots. DJ Wagner, 9 ballots as well. Kentucky-bound Justin Edwards for Imhotep, 50 points, 9 ballots. So there's a big fall off after those 5. And then there's 34 guys that got voting. Like I said, we'll put it out on ballslife.com this weekend before the game. Justin Edwards is going to be at the Balls Life All-American game. So that'll be cool to see him, one more time. He really had a great season. Real quick, Ani, with DJ Wagner, one of the voters mentioned, he said, hey, Isaiah Collier had the best season. DJ Wagner had the best career, of the group. Like, and he just kind of mentioned that off the cuff. He's all, but, when you talk about the sophomores, like, these guys gotta, kind of catch up and just do, maybe they're going to have a big impact in the next year. We'll see. It doesn't seem like, like you said, they're not the talk of the town. Like Chelsea said about comparing Cameron Boozer to some crazy pro. Nobody's talking about the incoming freshman like that. So maybe it's a good thing for them. Maybe there's a little bit of pressure off of them,
right?
As a group. But I wanted to get your opinion about what he said about DJ and just his career. And then, obviously Kentucky has a great class, but nobody's right now is like, ooh, Kentucky's going to be in the Final Four. They might win it all. Everybody's just talking about the returning players of the portal, So What does that mean for that class of players?
Yeah, when you talk about like Collier and DJ, just over the 4-year career, I would say DJ has a better like career. But like Isaiah Collier this season was just, what he did with Wheeler has been really good. Like what was it, Ron? Like all his losses were basically against Fab 50 team. Like it wasn't against any slouches at all.
No.
And I thought Isaiah Collier over the past year just really grew in his game. Like for me, he's number one in the class.
Yeah,
23. Sure. I think he's really grown his game. I think the shooting is really getting there and it's improved. And I agree with that statement that Isaiah had the better season, and obviously with the situation at Camden where DJ couldn't compete for the state title, but I would say DJ for 4 years his career was better. I would agree with that. Then you speak about that class, when you talk about that Kentucky class, with Edwards, with Collier, with Bradshaw, right? I would say we were looking at this maybe 7-8 years ago, probably. People will probably be more excited about it, but just how the game of basketball just got older in the college level, how much older it's gotten, and the one-time transfer rule. And people have seen Coach Cal's had amazing classes, freshman classes, but how many listen, it's hard to win a national championship, but how many one and dones, a group of one and dones have won national championships is not common. So I think history and now seeing more of a sample size is showing people hey, you can have a great recruiting class, but no one's going to say, oh, they're going to the Final Four with this team. They're going to win a championship, because now we have a larger sample size of seeing that that's not common. It takes a special group for that to happen. So, now when you look at that Kentucky class, it got a chance to be really good, but, how much of it can that group of freshmen get, Kentucky to the Final Four? I don't really see that, maybe, but it's going to be dependent upon who comes back, who comes from the transfer portal and stuff like that, added on to what some of these freshmen could potentially do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just kind of talking a little bit about the balloting, and you mentioned, just to give an idea of how good a season Cameron Boozer had. 16 years of the balloting. Only Amani Bates has even been in the running as a sophomore. So Amani Bates in 220, and I'm glad the voters didn't jump on that so much. Like we said, they tempered their expectations a little bit. We thought that it was, like Chelsea mentioned, we thought that was a little outlandish in 219 and 20 as well, like the KD and all that, because he played 15s. I remember going down to Atlanta. It's like this boy's playing 15s. I was like, didn't you guys say he's the best? I'm thinking in my head, did you guys say he's the best prospect you've ever seen? Why is he playing 15s? You know what I mean? So the voters had him in 4th place, which is pretty good. He was on 8 ballots, but behind the winner, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Green. So that all worked out. Those 3 guys are really good. That they were really good. So that's pretty interesting that not a lot of sophomores. And then if you look back at the history of like high school basketball, and we've named this award in 1996 live. So from 1996 live, it's been picked at the end of the season. Before 1996, it's like retroactive, right? The players picking the player year based on high school. So like Amani Bates, our guy Cameron Boozer is like the first sophomore ever to win it. So like even in prior to 1996. So Lou Alcindor was kind of considered one of the better players in the country as a sophomore.
Right.
And then he was the National Player of the Year twice. And before him, Jerry Lucas, the old forward who played for the Knicks in Ohio State. He was kind of one of the first big high school basketball stars. He was a first team All-American as a sophomore. And then he won it twice. So that's basically it. Those two guys. So then when you look at sophomores that high, it's those two, Amani and then LeBron James. Well, we kind of briefly talked about that during the season, that maybe he should have got a little more push as the player of the year as a sophomore. We talked about that with his old teammate Cam Joyce and how they barely lost to Oak Hill at the buzzer on LeBron's mission. So like, but people were already talking about him being the best player in the country. So he probably should have got a little more push, but the winner was ironically DJ's dad, DeJuan Wagner, and he had a 100-point game. He averaged 42 points. Like, I get why DJ was I get why DeJuan was, looking back 22 years later, like, I see why it was, but like maybe LeBron should have got a little bit more push, but that's basically it. We're basically talking about 5 players in the history of high school basketball. So what Cameron Boozer is doing is pretty special.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, 5. We're just talking about basically 5 players, 3 all-time greats, and Amani Bates, and that's it. Yeah, so a couple guys that were second team All-Americans or second 5 All-Americans at that level: DeAndre Ayton, 215 as a sophomore, Michael Kidd Gilchrist in 209, and OJ Mayo as a sophomore. And that's pretty. My DeAndre Ayton is about as good a young prospect as I've seen.
He was. Yeah,
as a young prospect. Again, he was already kind of a grown man as a senior. He is what he is in the pros. I haven't really seen a big jump since Ani. I think Phoenix Suns fans have strong opinions about that. But, like he's as a sophomore, I used to tell people, I was like, because he played at a small high school in a fall league, real small high school, right? Just funny story. I'm like, in front of nobody. He was a rising sophomore, and I was telling people, and I'm like, you guys got to go see this kid. Like, it's for $5. Just go. I go, he's the best player in LA. I go, no, he's the best player in LA. Like, he's better than any Laker. He's the best player. It was at the end when the Lakers, they weren't doing too hot in those years. This is like 214, 215. Like, we were joking about it, like as a rising player. So those are it. Like, there's not really guys on that level that Boozer's playing. So shout out to him as we move forward on this. And I wanted to kind of piggyback what Chelsea said and what Ani said, you too, Chelsea, about the future. And Ani, you said about, these guys coming in as freshmen. This is going to remain because the NBA just announced their collective bargaining agreement, 7-year agreement. The Board of Governors and the Players Association kind of came together. It begins on July 1st, 23, and it runs through 7 years, so through 29-30. So that means that the one and done is basically untouched. Ani, just wanted to get your opinion about that, and then Chelsea, you could jump in there as well. So I mean, we can talk about the details of it real quick before we jump into the NBA playoffs, but the run and done is basically going to be around. So as we talk about this 223 class, we're going to talk about it next year with 24, see what kind of impact they have.
Right. Yeah. And no, I thought it was interesting. I know at first, when we were starting to hear about, potentially getting rid of the one and done, that there was a real possibility of it. But throughout the year, you kind of hear you bring in high school kids will eventually, what does it do to the veterans? Right. So I knew that, if you're really looking to protect the players, especially the guys that are in the league, they don't want to lose spots to guys that are 18 years old and 18 going on 19. So I like the one and done. I think people are getting more creative on not necessarily just college, right? Like you seen G League Ignite, you see guys like Dink Pate who classed up and is doing 2 years with G League. We've seen Scoot Henderson do that. NBL like AJ Johnson. So I think it's a good thing. I do believe it's just, you know how special you have to be, like getting out of high school and playing the league. Like, yeah, we seen LeBron do it, we seen Dwight Howard do it. You know, we can go on like KG. Like, I know we seen it, but it's just really hard. And like we're seeing so many freshmen struggle in the first year in college. So talk about going to the NBA, right? And I would be really interested to see, like, you know, Ronnie, you talk to high school kid like players, and I've talked a decent amount. Like, if you were to open that up, you know how many kids would declare for the draft?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I got, you know, there's some kids right now that are sophomores talking about, man, I wish I could declare for the draft right now. So like, like I ain't lying. So, you know, I'm glad they did it. If you are like that, there's still other pro like options, right? Like some people that, you know, OTs doing kind of has their stuff as well. So there are options where you can go for a year, then go to the NBA, right? And I think it's good. It still protects the guys that are veterans that can actually play in an NBA game if needed. Like, even if they're in the bench, like, can still come in if needed with injuries or whatever and play, compared to an 18-year-old that, you know, you can't. You know, you can't put him in the game. So I'm happy that they did do that.
Sure. Chelsea, what do you think?
Ani, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, I've been tuning into the Draymond Green podcast, and he talks a lot about the collective bargaining agreement, and he hates it. A lot of the things that changed as far as the agreement this year. But I will say, I think they got this part right. Like, I'm a fan of these kids going through the process. You know, a lot of them are not mature enough to, you know, step into the NBA and perform, you know, whether it's their bodies or just their game. You know, there's a learning curve when you go from, you know, college or even high school to professional. Like, every level, you know, there's a process to adjusting. But besides that, like, from maturity aspects, I like to see these kids go to college, learn, grow up a little bit, and then come into the league a little more prepared. Then, you know, like Ani said, I don't think there's really any players, you know, right now that are just ready to step into the league and contribute anyway. So 1 year in college isn't going to kill you. I think it's good, just better long term, you know, for these kids, success in the league. And, you know, and it gives, you know, it gives these vets, you know, an extra year to stick on a roster, or, you know, steal a little bit of money, maybe like Udonis Haslem, or, you know, Andre Iguodala, stick a little longer. But for these kids, I think it's the best option. So I'm excited they did it. You know, some people may argue, you know, I know people are waiting for Bronny to just make that jump from Sierra Canyon right to the NBA, but this is what these kids need. Like, if you want the league to continue to grow and these kids to have the best chance to actually stay long term, I think this was the best decision.
Gotcha. And yeah, I think so too. Like you said, Ani, people are talking about it. The expectations going to EYBL and you and 3SSB and these 2 live periods, like, the expectations for people are so high, like they're out of control. So this kind of tempers it back a little bit, I guess. You know, not oh wow, we can go to the NBA now again. Like, that would have been huge news on the grassroots circuit.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the type? Like, could you imagine the players, like the players you would see declare for the NBA draft if they open that up?
Yeah,
like that would damn near be comical.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because you look back at when they last had it, 2005. So that's Mana Alice, Amir Johnson, Brandon Rush, maybe that group. And again, some of them did go. Mana Alice got drafted too low. Amir Johnson was one of the last picks. I remember that. It was an okay group, but they talked about the collecting the bargain agreement. I remember because I was on the circuit, and then they were talking about, well, Greg Oden is not going to be able to go pro, you know, because he was probably already the best player in the country. Nothing against the 05 group, but he's an 06 guy. He was already probably the best player in the country. So it was like, oh, he's going to go to college. And then, like you said, Ani, he kind of dominated. Like, he was ready, and he got, you know, Ohio State to the final game where they lost to the back-to-back Florida team, which is one of the better teams of recent memory. And it was like, oh, that group's not going to be able to go. So this 07 group can't go. So that group was really strong. And I just remember Billy Walker made a statement. It's very funny because SC played Kansas State in the first round of the tournament. So it was obviously OJ Mayo versus old high school teammate Billy Walker. And he's like, oh, yeah, they did this game for TV and the money and the ratings. So, like, he already had an idea of kind of the stuff we talk about now, like name, image, likeness, but it's almost 20 years ago, more than 15 years ago. It's like, oh, this is a money-making scheme. So players have kind of, they know about that. They just, society was in a different point then, or the I guess the grassroots system and we're all different. So it wasn't talked about the tones we talk about it now. All these players deserve money. Nobody was saying that then. You know what I mean? But the players kind of knew, like, oh, man, they set this game up because it's a great first-round game. And I just remember that, and that group, those first groups having to go through the college process again. Because it was basically 10 years of Kevin Garnett starting it and Kobe to 2005, right? And most of the good players that did go, they did a good job. I think people thought Kevin Garnett wasn't going to be impactful, but he started figuring it out maybe about 20 games in. It was like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to stick. You know what I mean? He's going to stick. He's going to be fine. And then, like you said, Ani, too many guys were starting to declare. Like, you could pull out some of the names that didn't really get drafted or make it, and then it would be 20-fold worse now. People thought it was bad back then. You know, like, oh, this guy, why is he declaring? But, like, it would be way worse now. Some guys went way too low. Even like Jerry Colangelo, who coached the Suns, he was like, kind of had that Pat Riley attitude, like, all right, what's up with these high school players? Like, what do we need these high school players in the draft for? But, like, when they drafted Amari Stoudemire, they knew they hit. They're like, this is a great pick for us. You know what I mean? So, like, some of the guys did do well, but we're not going to see that for a while. So, I don't know what else you learned on the podcast with Draymond Green, Chelsea. You know, any of the other major things, I guess. Yeah, there's investment opportunities in the NBA for NBA and WNBA players. They can invest in things related to the NBA. So there are a few other things maybe.
Yeah, they added in-season tournament, which they stole from the WNBA because, you know, the WNBA has the Commissioner's Cup that's been, you know, very successful, cash prize. So they stole that in-season tournament. What else did they have? I think the salary cap is staying the same, which is a good thing. Yeah. What else did they have that was interesting? Because Draymond broke all this down. He actually wasn't a fan of a lot of the negotiations that these players were making.
No penalties for marijuana use.
Yeah.
That's changed.
They did. The one thing that they did add that we talked about previously on the pod was just the player awards and you having to play a minimum game. That was what Draymond was going in on the most, because I think you have to play 65 games, maybe. I think for major awards like league MVP, defensive player of the year, sixth man of the year. And that's going to be tough for a lot of the stars in the league that just, you know, or whether it's injury related or load management. I guess his gripe was just, you're going to see a lot of, I don't know what he said, bums or scrubs, you know, making these all NBA teams or getting the league MVP award for the sheer fact that, you know, the cream of the crop isn't eligible. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's something that we kind of addressed previously on the pod that I thought was a good idea. I don't know if I would have made it 65 games, but in an 82 game season, 65, I mean, it's not bad, but
yeah, I mean, like, just don't miss more than 17 games. Like, you can still load manage, just don't miss more. Like, if you are healthy, just miss 17 games. Like, listen, the 65 games, so it's still is a good amount. I'm not gonna say it, but just miss 17 games. Like, if you're healthy, do your load management and miss 17 games, like, you still be okay. Like, you can just not play back-to-backs or something like that. Like,
yeah. I think it's good.
Players, and for the players that are injured too, those ones usually don't qualify for the awards anyway. So
right.
Like 17 games, if you put it that way, is not really terrible. You don't have to play back-to-backs. You know, you're not going to have that many back-to-backs in the season. So I don't know. Maybe they got it right. It'll be interesting to see next year if we see like Aaron Gordon and, you know, players on that tier, you know, getting first team all NBA and stuff like that. So I guess we'll see.
No, we won't. We won't.
That's what Draymond's saying. That's what he thinks is going to happen. He thinks the stars are not going to be getting these awards anymore because they're not going to be eligible.
Wow. I mean, Draymond ain't got to worry about it for him personally, you know, but yeah, it's maybe the young guy, maybe a few young guys will step more to the forefront in terms of, like, you'll get to, maybe they make third team all NBA. I still think the best players will be the best players, you know,
right?
Unless they have a big injury, like you said. I think that's really been the theme of this whole NBA playoffs is that, and you kind of mentioned it, Chelsea, with the one and done, and people are figuring out, like, let's say, just use an example, and again, they're not the only team, the Houston Rockets, like, that's not going to be a winning formula. Having a bunch of young guys, you know, the older players are going to come through. I think the playoffs have shown that, the smart ones that load management correctly. So what I got out of this playoffs, and then Chelsea, well, you can start off, we'll jump into the playoffs, is like the teams that load managed it correctly and the veterans are the teams that are winning right now. That's what I see. So it goes more back to your point of what you guys say. So Chelsea, just kind of talk about that, like the veterans, leadership, again, being healthy and kind of, like you said, load management properly, and be ready for a playoff push, almost like the NCAA tournament. Like, you want to peak for the conference tournaments and the tournament. You don't want to like shoot your wad in January and in December and be peaking. Then you want to, and that's kind of turned into what the NBA is kind of turning into. Like, the teams that are peaking and are healthy are doing the best.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's all about timing. And you know, being a player myself, I know how hard it is to like win a championship. And just the amount of luck that you need sometimes that goes along with the preparation. Like, I mean, we just saw the Milwaukee Bucks, who had the best record in the NBA pretty much all season, best team all season. And then Giannis goes down in game one of their playoff series, you know, which hobbled them, which ultimately led to to them losing as the number one seed. So all about timing, all about health. But, you know, you're right. I think load management is necessary. Just, you know, I think some days, you know, players just don't have it. But I think if you're just not playing at the expense of just because you just don't want to, then I think that's kind of unacceptable. But for the most part, you know, with the exception of maybe Kawhi, I don't think the stars really do that, though. You know, and Kawhi has been hobbled by a lot of injuries. So don't get me wrong. Like, you know, he, you know, has struggled, you know, since he's been in the league, just injury after injury. And when he plays, he's awesome. So you can't, you know, knock him there. But, you know, Steph's not just sitting out just to sit out. Like, you know, we don't really see 17 games would be fine for a guy like Steph if he's healthy. 17 games would be fine for a guy like Bron if he's healthy. You know, I don't think that players really want to sit out. I think it's more injury related, you know, more times than not. So, you know, I think that it is all about timing. We're seeing it. You spoke about just having a young core, which just really the lack of inexperience. We just saw that with the Golden State Warriors series versus Sacramento Kings. You know, you need it. You need players that have been in these big moments. And, you know, having youth, I think, is great, especially for the regular season, because those guys can, you know, get up and down and play maybe a little bit harder and back-to-backs and night after night. But at the end of the day, when the experience kicks in, you need people that have been there before. So I wasn't surprised at all to see, you know, how the Golden State Warriors kind of dominated in Game 7 yesterday.
Yeah. Ani, what do you kind of think there in terms of just the, you know, the older teams kind of getting through and, you know, the younger teams not really closing their season strong?
I mean, experience is a big thing. Like being there before is a big thing. Like, you know, you look at Game 7, and you just look at that series with like Sacramento and Golden State. Like there were games, like especially in the fourth quarter, where Sacramento had dumb turnovers, right? Like people do get on Golden State for like, you know, the way they play, they're going to turn the ball over, you know, but they just know how to finish games compared to Sacramento. Like the shot selections. I mean, the game where they lost with the Harrison bar missed the shot, like, but the last 5 minutes was just god awful. Like you just saw an inexperienced team, right? And credit to Sac, but like when you look at these young teams, even Memphis, as immature as they are, right? Like they've been in the playoffs, but you know, guys like LeBron and AD, some of those guys, like they're more the guys that have more experience and more mature are winning. The guys that are immature, they play like they're immature when it matters most. Because like Ronnie and Chelsea, like y'all know, like when it comes to like finishing out series, like 7-game series, like like you could have lost a series in 5 or 6 games, but like you probably could have won those games if you cleaned up like 4 of those minutes. like you know, it's like 3 or 4 minutes that you just played the right way. You could have won the series. And I think we're seeing that from the inexperienced teams, right? The older, I mean, the younger teams. We're just seeing those few moments where they're just, you know, they're looking like a young team, you know, lose series. So I think experience and being there before and knowing how to win and knowing how to close out games is so important.
No doubt.
It always is. Like you said, right? The Rockets. I mean, looking at them, like I got teams that had to rebuild, but I think even part of rebuilding, you still need vets around these young guys because they got to grow up.
Yeah, more than ever. Yeah, for sure. And like you said, the teams with the best records are kind of out. It's crazy in the NHL. I mean, again, we're not hockey experts by no means, but the Boston Bruins had the best record regular season ever and lost in the first round. Did I get that right? Did I hear that right? Like,
no, I heard that. I saw that on ESPN.
Wow, like that's a huge upset. Again, it's a first round, but people are comparing it to like, the Patriots losing to the Giants, and I'm like, no, I don't think it's that big. It's the first round. So that's another thing we want to talk when we talk about the NBA. So I know Chelsea's kind of updated on us. We're now in the conference semifinals. So Denver and Phoenix. Denver wins at home. And then, in the other East is Boston and Philly, and the Knicks and the Heat. And the Heat are up already 1-0. So a couple things about the first round, and kind of like you guys mentioned. First of all, let's go to the Heat real quick. Jimmy Butler has a monster game, and everybody's like, is this the greatest playoff performance by a Heat ever? And I'm like, wait, hold on. If it goes back to your point, Ani, Dallas Mavericks are up 2-0 on the Heat. And like you said, if the Kings would have won game 3, they win this series. Nobody's talking about Dre. Nobody cares about his podcast. Nobody's talking about Steph's performance. If they win game 3, it's pretty much over, right? So that they kind of knew, like Chelsea says, that's their game 7. A veteran team knows that game 3 is their game 7. So back to that Miami performance, it's like, wait a minute. Miami was down 2-0 against your Dallas Mavericks, and they won game 3. So whatever I said, whatever Dwayne Wade did in that game 3 was the best performance in Heat history, period. Because they win the title, they come on and have people, they get better players, and LeBron goes down there. Maybe if they don't win the title, maybe LeBron never goes down there. You don't know that. You know what I'm saying? So So don't tell me Jimmy Butler's first round game is the best performance ever. Like, it's the first round,
And Miami was down double digits that game, and that was at the point where the Heat realized just give the ball to Dwayne Wade and get the hell out the way.
Like you got to mention the moment. So like you said, knowing the moment is big. So I think that was a key with the Kings series. Like, and then you lose. The Kings lost, and like you said, they kind of gave away another game. Ani, was it game 5 that they kind of gave away? Yeah, and then the Golden State wins on the road game 7. But again, if you win game 3, none of that matters.
Right.
My point. So, but let's talk about Jimmy Butler. Like, even though, dude, that dude. I mean, it's still a great performance. Don't get me wrong. So, Chelsea, talk about Jimmy Butler and the Heat.
Okay, well, sometimes we are a prisoner of the moment. So, greatest Heat performance, but I want to be a prisoner of the moment right now. This man, Jimmy Butler, is so good. I can't really think of, I want to insert him into the top 10 right now, into top 10 NBA players, because in the playoffs, there is not really one person that you can say that you would prefer to really have on your team that's more gritty, tough, hard-nosed, going to give you the effort, balls out. In the playoffs. Like, Jimmy Butler has done this year after year after year. Like, I will say he doesn't give a damn about the regular season, which, he doesn't really need to. He's never really in MVP conversation, all NBA first team type of conversations, and that's okay. But when it comes out to your time to just grit out and tough out a win and maybe do more with a little bit less, I mean, look at the Heat's roster right now. Kyle Lowry came into the series like looking like he should basically retire. Tyler Hero breaks his hand, and Jimmy Butler still rallies these boys and says, "Follow me." This man had 90 some odd points in 2 games. Like, I don't know. I just want to give him his flowers. I think he's absolutely incredible. I did see a poll somewhere where a lot of the GMs just said, that he's one of the players that they fear the most in the playoffs. Just because of his ability to get stuff done. And I think it's totally warranted, the success that he's having, but also it just speaks to the Heat culture. I think Eric Spoelstra is a great coach. I think Miami is just hard-nosed and tough, and that's kind of just what you need to grind out close games. So just the style of play, the culture, having Jimmy Butler as your leader is why we see the Heat up, in the semis, up one game on the Knicks, and I really have them winning the series.
Wow. Yeah, Ani, just talk a little bit about that JUCO guy, and maybe not, it didn't have fanfare, but I mean, if he has a couple more, let's say to Chelsea's prediction, they win the series, he has a couple more monster games. Now, are we talking about one of the better playoff players, pretty much ever? Is he to that level? Are we talking about that?
Jimmy went to the same JUCO I played in, Tyler Junior College. He actually came and saw us my freshman year, and then I thought I was a hard worker, and then Jimmy told me his workout plans. I was like, oh shit, I can't mess with this dude. But he's big time in Tyler, and but just seeing his playoff performances, I want to see how this playoffs finish. I don't see Miami winning a championship now. Jimmy could somehow make that happen. I mean, how good he's been playing, but he's one of the best playoff performers I've seen past 10, 15 years. He's definitely up there all time. It's going to be tough. I think I got to see how his career kind of just, pans out. But man, he's one of the best I've seen. This is one of the best. What I saw in that first round series, that reminded me of Dwayne Wade in 06. That's kind of what it reflected. Not even just because it's Miami Heat, but just someone that literally just I'm putting this team on my back. And we're going to win a series we have really no business winning. That's just how I felt. Y'all have no business winning this series, but he's literally putting them on their back. He's one of the best playoff performances I've seen in the 2000s for sure. So he may end up their all-time eventually.
Wow. So let's talk about that. Start with you, Chelsea. Just kind of give your quick predictions, and we'll talk about the series that everybody cares about, and obviously that's Golden State and the Lakers. Again, Golden State gets by that game 7. Steph has a 50-point game, first 50-point game in the game 7. As you mentioned, I watched the second half, and it just seemed like he hit a couple threes and then they got up 17, and it just, with 6 minutes of the game was over.
Yeah.
Just the building, it was just eerily quiet, and the game was over. It didn't seem okay, this game's over. I know they're on the road, but they weren't going to come back. What was it at Chelsea was it about that second half that was just, is it just like you said, the experience, or is just Steph that good and the Kings had no answer with Fox's injury a little bit? He didn't really play great in the last 3 games.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, but I will say Steph is that good.
Yeah.
And Steph makes certain plays that just take the air out of you as a player and take the air out of the building. He's falling away, falling out of bounds, hitting a 3, balls bouncing everywhere. He picks it up, dribbles between the whole team, lays it up off the back. But those kind of plays just deflate you. And he had several of those. The Warriors in the third quarter too, just kind of, put their foot on the gas and just didn't let go. I saw other players too that just kind of took the life out of their arena, like Kevon Looney. He had 10 rebounds in the third quarter. Every time, Golden State did miss, he got the rebound and passed it back out. And now we have to guard again for another, 14 seconds. So I think that was just the Warriors kind of just letting them know, you guys aren't going to win this game. Steph, hitting ridiculous shots. He had 50 points on 50% shooting. A lot of the shots, there's just things that you just couldn't do anything about. So the Warriors, I wanted Sacramento to win, but I understand why the Warriors did, and it was just pretty much obvious that the experience was just going to kind of overtake them, regardless of them playing on the road.
Makes sense. Ani, just give us some of your predictions, and then we'll talk a little more detail about this round 2, Lakers and Golden State.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go to 6 or 7 games, I believe. I got Golden State. It'll be interesting. What I like about Golden State, this their depth. That their guys come to play. 1 through when they can go 7, 8 guys. LA can. It's funny. I remember we talked about when the trade deadline, all this. I said, LA they have a roster that could get to the Western Conference Finals, right? But I didn't see it in but they actually really can. I got Golden State in 7. I think this is going to be a 7-game season. It's going to be a lot tougher than some people got. I heard like Golden State in 5 or 6. I think this is going 7. I think LA has the personnel to match up, like, you know, the rebound against the Golden State can like switch up their lineups, be versatile, can go small and play fast, can defend and switch. So it's just going to be all about LA making shots. You know, guys just really making shots. But I think Golden State just, you know, they've been there before. Guys are going to do their job. I think Andrew Wiggins is really starting to come along. Like, I think that's the one guy that, you know, the longer the Golden State's in the playoffs, the more dangerous he's going to be, right? Because he's going to kind of get back into form. So I think it's going to go 7 games, but I think Golden State. I want LA to win. You know, this is probably the first time I ever said that a day in my life, but I want LA to win. But I think Golden State wins the 7.
Interesting. So give me guys your quick, we'll jump back to that. Give me your quick, Chelsea, start with you. You know, are we forgetting about Denver and talk a little bit about Boston and Philly?
Denver is really good. And, you know, I was talking to somebody, like, we don't really talk about Denver that much. I think we talk about the Joker, but not really Denver as a team. But when I was watching them in, you know, their first game versus the Suns the other day, and I just said, wow, this team has everything. They have a star in Joker. They have a co-star in Murray. They have athleticism, size, depth. They have a good bench. They have big wings that can guard and make shots. I think this is a very complete team. And, you know, I don't think anybody has them really winning, but I think that they should be in the conversation, you know, because they have all the pieces. I see them beating Phoenix in probably 6 games. Maybe Phoenix, you know, figures it out and can make the series a little bit more interesting. But what I saw based off of game 1, they're getting Phoenix up out of there. And they'll probably and they'll be in the Western Conference Finals for sure. I didn't get my prediction in LA and Golden State, but of course I'm going with LeBron. And Ani, you know, he tried to say he wanted the Lakers to win, try to hop on our bandwagon, but we don't need all that.
I'm not hopping on nobody's bandwagon. I just don't want to see Golden State win it again. So
and that's what we're going to talk about. That's what's kind of my point.
I'm not hopping on LA's bandwagon. Trust me.
Let Chelsea finish her Boston Philly analysis, then we're going to jump to Golden State LA.
And that series, I have the Lakers in 6 games anyway. But on to the East, Boston versus Philly. I think Boston is just too good. I mean, I think it's their, you know, championship to lose, at least on the East. Philly, you know, Joel Embiid, front runner for league MVP this year. Like, he's unavailable again. You know, he has a LCL or PCL, something with the knee, but predicted to not play in game 1. We don't know when he's really going to be back, maybe game 2, but, you know, Boston's that good that, you know, can you really come back in game 3 when you're down 0-2 and think that you guys are going to change the series around? So I have Boston, you know, winning in 6 if Embiid is available, 5 if he's not. And Knicks and Heat, I think that's an interesting series. I'm a big Jalen Brunson fan. I know the Knicks fans are super excited to have him and just excited to just be in the playoffs in general and to win their first series in, I think, over a decade or something they were saying on ESPN. But I have the Heat. You know, I'm team Jimmy Butler. I think the Knicks will probably get a game or 2. But if I had to guess, I would say Heat in 6, probably winning on their home floor.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about that real quick, what you're saying about the Heat, because you mentioned it, Chelsea, a few minutes ago. Erik Spoelstra. I remember, if you guys don't recall, like when the Heat were trying to get their first title after they lost to your Dallas team, Ani, and it was a timeout, and LeBron had either LeBron or one of those guys had a bad sequence. Spoelstra wanted a timeout, and he bumped them. He just bumped them. They bumped each other, great shoulders. Everybody's like, "Oh, does that mean that Spoelstra's going to get fired tomorrow?" Like, people were just, like, you know, but they were talking about really getting like Spoelstra fired. Like, maybe the Heat need to change. That's why they're not winning. So, like, and as now you look at it later, he's has like one of the best records in the last 10 years, good success. Like, is that just, you know, like, he's never won Coach of the Year? Is he just getting a bad rap, or is that because he's mostly had some of the better players in the league? Like, it's just crazy how the media can play this. So I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about that because you mentioned it real quick, Chelsea, and we didn't touch up on it. Like, he does deserve some credit. Like, he's been consistently good as a coach, and look where Miami's at now, so just kind of talk about that real quick.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. Yeah, I mean, I think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. Like, I know we talk about what Steve Kerr and what he's doing. I'm not gonna, I mean, it's been great, but like what Spoelstra has done with less, yes, with the big three, but I think he's done it with less talent. Like when you talk about his in-game adjustments, and you just talk about like how he's just like managed like personalities and talent, and he goes throughout the year and consistently. Like, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. Honestly, like that's my opinion. I think that doesn't really get talked about a lot, right?
No, that's why I'm talking about it.
Yeah, but like I think he is the best coach in the NBA. I think he is, and I think people talk about Spo, and yes, like what he's like. You talk about people doing load management, right? Look at what Spo's done with Miami, with Jimmy, and load management with these guys, right? Yeah, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. Yeah, I think people need to give him his flowers.
Good for him, because again, video guy, worked his way through, worked his way up. So props to him. We'll see how that series goes. But let's jump back as we're closing this show out. Getting toward the end here. We'll talk about it for as long as you guys want to talk about it. The Lakers and Golden State. Go back to this game 7. Everybody's like, this Steph Curry, this is the greatest thing ever. 50 again, prisoner. We talk about being prisoner of the moment. Ani, I'll start with you. And your attitude and your expressions to this are kind of my question. What is it about this Golden State team now that has changed? Meaning, is it just the Draymond Green Poole incident? They seem like they were a breath of fresh air. People loved them. Then they moved across to the Bay, to San Francisco. A lot of people don't like that, especially old school dudes, California dudes, Bay Area dudes. They don't like that. They're straight up. They don't like that. You know what I mean? So people love Curry. It was a great story. Now they irritate the shit out of half the country or most of the country. They have a whole different dynamic to them. I don't know if it's just Draymond Green. He's an irritating bastard. But like, what is it that you mentioned? I just need them to lose. I want them to lose. Like, you either love them or you hate them. But what's happened there? And obviously, them playing the Lakers, which is the most popular team in the league, everybody's going to have a difference of opinion or choose a side, basically. So, what has happened with Golden State?
Yeah, this thing with them is like, when you're a team that just wins that much, people just kind of get tired of you winning, right? It's just what it is. That, and then I think just, Draymond just irritates the hell out of everyone. Right. Draymond just irritates the hell out of me. But, it's, but I respect it. Like, I do respect him, but it's just like, okay, like, y'all can't keep winning. Like, okay, it has to, and like, someone has to, like, knock y'all off at some point. Like, you know what I mean? Even like Steph, some of the stuff he'll do, like, put you to sleep. So like, I'm like, all right, man, like, man, you need to get out at some point, bro. Like this, like, how long can this dynasty go?
Exactly.
And it's interesting. I remember last year we talked about, Golden State may have one more title in them. We were talking about like they could probably win like this year and maybe next year. Like that's crazy.
You think that's crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's crazy. So I think this thing, I'm just irritated by Golden State. Like I'm just like,
but I mean, you are in reference to a lot of the country. That's why I ask you, because you're representing a lot of the country.
Yeah, we're just tired of just like how. For me, it's just like, how can y'all keep winning? And it's annoying me, and I want to see something different. And Draymond is annoying. And I think for me, the whole him and Jordan Poole incident was like, come on, man. Like, that really just was like, okay, like, y'all can't come back and win the title. Like, this.
And who gets that credit, Chelsea? I'll jump to you. Who gets that credit? Because you mentioned it 6 months ago, or 3 months ago, or 4 months ago, whenever it happened. I couldn't be on that team. Chelsea's like, I couldn't be on that team. That dude bombed on me like that.
Facts.
I'd be out. I'm checked out, mentally checked out, trade me, whatever. They're still together. So is that, talk about that. And then who gets the credit for keeping together? Are they just that good? Because there's some dynamic there. People are talking about that dynamic a lot, So talk about that, Chelsea, and then putting that stuff aside and still winning on the court.
Well, I understand Ani's sentiments for sure. But me personally, I'm on the opposite end because I just want to see the best players. I would much rather just see Steph and LeBron versus, De'Aaron and LeBron, and De'Aaron is incredible. Don't get me wrong. But, this next series is going to be so anticipated, especially, based off of the history of just LeBron and Steph going head to head. They both have 4 championships. I think it's just kind of going to be must-see TV. So as annoying as Draymond is as a player, which everybody can agree to that, I think this was the matchup that, although people want to see, Golden State lose, I think people want to see LeBron lose too. So, I mean, I think it goes, on both sides in terms of the matchup. As far as the incident with Draymond Green, I noticed something in, I believe it was the last game, Golden State versus Sacramento. And I think Steph quietly holds things together over there. He's not super known as a vocal leader, but obviously he's the best player on the team and he's highly respected. I saw an incident where Jordan Poole was coming out of a timeout. Draymond Green was already on the bench. He had his warm-up on. He tries to pull, Jordan Poole to the side and say something to him. And Jordan Poole kind of like, get out of here, shrugs him off and walks to the bench. And then you see Steph quietly follow up and say, hey, you don't really know what he's saying, but he goes up to Jordan Poole, kind of, says something to him. Jordan Poole nods his head, and then Steph walks back over to Draymond and slaps his hand. So when I saw that dynamic, it just made me think of how important Steph is to the team. He's so highly respected by everybody. He doesn't do the antics that, Draymond does. And I understand why people feel that way about Draymond. I mean, Draymond is, very extra in the things that he likes to do, or things that he's going to do in a game. He's the bruiser for that team. He's the heart. He's the passion. But at the same time, he's going to, give you a little elbow or stomp on you like he did Sabonis. And that's just how it works. But I think Steph has held everything together. And that's credit to him as a leader, because I don't think we talk about him that much in that space. And when I saw that interaction, I think that he's the one that's been able to rally people behind the scenes. And, we've heard about him, calling, in the past with certain incidents or, keeping guys together. But I think he's really the glue. And, when you're the best player, that's kind of what needs to happen. And that's why I think, Golden State is always going to be a force to reckon with as long as he's, leading the charge.
As long as he's there.
I think it's 2 people. I always think it's Curry, like Chelsea talked about, but I think it's Steve Kerr. I think it takes someone, a player, and it also takes a coach to keep that. It takes a leader on the court and off the court. And I think Kerr has done a good job managing all that, right? Trying to keep a lot of things in-house. And then obviously when you have a leader on the floor like Steph, right, that can hold everything together, it's something special we're watching, And I think like with Jordan Poole and the Draymond thing, I think people kind of like took that, it was overblown. Like I've seen a lot of times, guys, like players just come in, they just don't even want to talk to nobody at the moment. That's probably what it was more than anything, right? Yeah. I don't think it was more about Draymond. Now it could be. I mean, dude punched him in the face pretty hard, but like I think it was more just Jordan Poole in that moment, right? But I think Steph and Steve Kerr have done a good job just holding it down. I think it takes someone on the court and off it to make that work.
Yeah, and I think to your point on it, like you said, it could be where Jordan Poole's like, dude, look I'm not even tripping about that incident. Like, I'm just not in this moment. I got you. I'm cool. I'm good. We'll be okay. You know what I mean? Right. So I kind of understand that sentiment. Like Chelsea said, it's always going to be in the back of his mind. He's not really messing with Draymond like that no more. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if they win or not. He's not. They're never going to be close like that.
Right.
You know? So get over it. Like, they got to move forward. So they both got to move forward with their lives or whatever they got professionally going on. So I see that. And to Chelsea's point about they both have 4 championships, the best players. Have you guys ever seen a second round matchup where it's like this anticipated in just terms of, again, we've knocked some top teams out. I don't really think of any second conference semifinals that has been like that discussed. And maybe it's just because it's these 2 guys and they're both veterans. They're both, on the back end or whatever. Obviously LeBron a little more because he's older, but I can't recall any. any second round series like that.
Not this much. You know, the ones that, you know, maybe for me was like, you know, it was like those Sacramento Mavs, like Sacramento Spurs, like, you know, with Chris Webber and all them, like those kind of second round matchups had that. Yeah. But this is like a whole different level because you're talking about like 10 to like someone that may be the GOAT and then someone that's probably a top 5, you know, creeping as a top 5 player in the NBA. So like, you know, in history. So I haven't seen something to this magnitude, but I think the last time I kind of felt this was like when the Kings would play the Mavs in the second round, or when Mavs in 06 played against the Spurs, you know, and Dirk, you know, over the hump against the Spurs, like stuff like that. Like that's probably the last time I seen like big time second round matchup.
Yeah, you're right about that. There were some big West matchups 10, 15 years ago when the West was really strong. And they had all those forwards, you know, all those power forwards that were like the best players in the league. You know, they were all in the West. So yeah, that makes sense. This team, both these teams have a lot riding on it. Like you said, are their fans should be a great series. As we talked about our best 5 a few podcasts ago, maybe a couple months ago. You guys don't like my top 5, obviously, with LeBron being where he was before. So we don't have to really talk about that. But like, none of us talked about Steph Curry, like outside the top 5. Nobody said he was 6. We were more like he's 10, 9, 11, wherever it is that we'd place him. But why is it going to change? See, for me, it's like a first round match. Don't talk to me about the first round. Like if they should get past the first round, they're, you know, a great player. And if you're talking about the best player, like I'm not going to focus too much on a first round matchup, but what's changing is that we appreciate this run so much more. If they have let's say they win this series and go to the conference finals, it's just that everybody appreciates it more now a few months later because he's 35, or are we just being prisoners of the moment? We're looking forward to this series.
We're just being prisoners of the moment. I mean, he's still like 9, 8 to me. Now, if he gets to the finals or wins it, then I put him in 5, right? Okay. You know, because that'll be his 5th title. But like the game 7 matchup, the game 7, like, is one of the most impressive game 7s. But like to me, like it was great. It was the first round, like you said. So it was like I can't take like the greatest game 7 of all time. Like, yo, it was the first round. Like, let's chill. But listen, if he wins it, he's top 5. He's top 5. He's top 4 or 5. But you know,
holy mackerel.
Yeah,
great for him. And I'm not saying holy mackerel, I disagree. I'm just like, look how quickly stuff changes. 2 months ago, we were talking about something totally different.
Yeah, I mean, but you had a 5th title to your resume, and then if he wins the finals MVP, he's like, shit, man. Like you know, I mean, you got to put him in there. I'm gonna put him in there, right? But you know, I think we're just being prisoners of the moment. He's not there right now.
Okay, Chelsea, you feel the same or no? It's a little different.
He's not in my top 5, but I think he's definitely trending up. And, you know, with the championship and with the finals MVP, then you got to throw him in there. I agree with Ronnie. But when I looked at Steph, like, I know it was, you know, first round, game 7. And I think it was more incredible because he hasn't really been that incredible in game 7s, like historically. You know, he's been inconsistent in game 7s. But this man's not slowing down, though. And I think his style of play is what's going to put him there because he can play this way for 7 more years. Legitimately. Steph,
7 more years.
He's like, he's a tire.
Listen, I say this because his game is predicated off of shooting and running around. He's been driving to the basket and showing his ability to finish and stuff around.
He's going to do this at 42?
Yes.
Chelsea's gonna be like, yes, look at him, go.
I look at LeBron and how he has slowed down so much because his game is built off of athleticism and just father time. You're gonna have that natural decline, like your body physically cannot. But Steph just shooting. What if he just turns into a catch and shoot, Ani? He's still going to be one of the best catch and shoot players there ever was and still can score that much.
But he's going to run like he's doing now at 40.
He's not going to run like that. He's just going to catch and shoot. He's going to turn into
okay, fair enough. That's why I'm like, he can't keep this up at 40.
No, I think his style of play is going to allow him to play longer than LeBron and still at a higher level because of the way that he plays. So 7 may be an exaggeration. Okay. But I'm saying in general, Ani, his game is based off of catching and shooting. So will he have the motor to run around like crazy? Maybe not. But even if he turns into a catch and shoot, he's still going to be very formidable and shoot a high percentage.
I think the shooting has allowed him to be able to play maybe as long as LeBron James, but I don't think longer. I think the shooting can keep him on the court until he's LeBron, but LeBron, I don't think it can make him play. He will not be at the level LeBron is at 40.
Did you see LeBron in game, what was it, 4 or 5? That man was gassed. He has to go in there and post up. He has to fight with Dylan Brooks. Bump.
Didn't LeBron post 20 and 20 in this series? Didn't he post 20 and 20 this series?
I mean, he's LeBron.
So you tell me Steph at 40 is going to do that? He's going to put up 20 and 20 and 10.
We saw Ray Allen be so formidable too at the end of the career when he wasn't. People don't know that young Ray Allen used to put it on the floor and dunk it and jam on you. People just know Ray Allen as a catch and shoot, and I see Steph fitting into that role, catching and shooting, still being one of the greatest shooters of all time, and doing it at a high level. So yes, 7 years an exaggeration because of age. 42 is insane.
At 40, he will be a quality player.
I think this his style of play. He's not taking a beating on it.
But he's not LeBron yet.
Finesse. No, he's not LeBron. And you know LeBron is my guy. So
I was about to say, are you a Lakers fan? Like, what's going on here?
I absolutely am. But I just look at the style of play.
That's funny. And that's why I brought it up, because I wanted to try to goat you guys into some kind of difference of opinion, because the people have a strong opinions about this all of a sudden. We didn't have a strong opinion about this like a month ago. We're just like, okay, we'll see what Golden State does in the playoffs. Maybe they'll, I didn't, I was like, this dynasty is going to be over if Draymond keeps acting like this. So that's kind of why I brought it up, but it's definitely changed a lot. But
to my point, Ronnie, real quick, I just think that Steph is trending upward in the top 10 anyway, just to my point, because I feel like he's going to play several more years, whether it's 4 or 7 at a high level, because of his ability to shoot the ball. And I think that's going to put him in those conversations, whether he wins another championship or not. He's going to shatter whatever 3-point record, that will probably become untouchable to the next person. He's still going to be climbing the ranks of all NBA in terms of scoring. So like I said, I just think he's trending up, and I think his style of play, when you're not taking a beating and getting punished all night, he's never been a defender. So you can talk about him having to guard faster, younger player. He's never been that. So I don't think he's going to become a more incredible defender, later on down the line. He's just going to change and be catch and shoot. And he's going to do that at a high level still. That's my point.
Do you think he wants to stick around like that? Or is it going to depend on how good the team is? Yeah. Or do you just see that he's going to, play because he can? And I don't know what you guys think about that, but maybe, everybody just assumes a player is going to play a long time.
If the team's good, I think he'll.
Yeah, if the team's good, I think he'll stay on. I just think if, let's say, they have some major injury or Clay moves on, Draymond retires, I mean, Steph just gonna hang on as a 500 team. I don't know. Maybe I don't think so.
I don't see him ring chasing either.
No, he doesn't need to. And to your guys' point, yeah, that's pretty interesting. It should be a fireworks series. You guys, I mean, just your guys' passion for it already shows what the country's thinking about it. You guys are like kind of on opposite ends. I get the drama. My thing is the first round. Like, whoa, it's the Kings. It's the first round. Like the Kings. Like, kidding me? We'll see where Steph ends up. Yeah, he's gonna move up. Because again, I think people are appreciating what he's doing at 35 years old. He can keep playing. He's playing at a high level, but we'll see. I mean, this can change real quick. I would have, the Lakers beat them, then they're out in the second round. Now they looked at as an aging team, and maybe not. Maybe some of the younger guys are gonna keep together. Now, some people are real quick before we close out. Like some people are now already saying Jordan Poole. They're tripping, giving him all that money. I mean, is Jordan Poole gonna figure it out? Again, he's a big piece. Again, they got by Kings, but that's the Kings. They've never done it. We know this regular season wasn't the greatest. What's your guys' real quick opinion there? Is he going to figure it out? Is he going to be there in a long-term mainstay piece for the next 5 to 7 years? I mean, he's a young guy.
Chelsea.
I will say that, maybe it's just a case of us being prisoners of the moment. Like Jordan Poole's offensive skill set and the things he was able to do in their run last year, really elevated him in people's minds, I think. But the more, and myself included, like he's a cone defensively, but offensively, he's very talented in terms of his ability to score and the things that he can do. I mean, I don't think that there's, a whole bunch of players that are just better than him from that standpoint. But the more that I've watched him, his inability to just want to provide, resistance on defense, his inability to play with any type of wherewithal and IQ, and his basketball IQ is to the floor. What I've learned, like it's not he's not getting it. And Draymond is constantly harping on him because Draymond is so smart that he wants him to do this, do that. And if you have to keep directing somebody through every single play and they're not able to just kind of like pick it up, I think it's going to be a struggle for you. And I think that's going to be kind of Jordan Poole's Achilles heel, is just one, his lack of defense and his basketball IQ for kind of buying into what the Warriors want him to do. So it's very much so right now looking like he's been overpaid.
Wow.
I don't know, if the Warriors are gonna, maybe he surprises us and ends up playing well, throughout the rest of the playoffs, and the Warriors will have a better taste in their mouth with him. But, Steve Kerr has benched him in a few games versus Sacramento Kings, just because of the way that he's playing. So I don't want to say that the Warriors are going to give up and move on from him, but right now he's not looking like he's worth the contract that he has, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah, I with him, it's like, defensively, he's not great. He's never really been that great of a defender. Offensively, I felt like he was going to take even more of a jump from last year, right? Like you saw him get to another tier, and I thought he was going to get to that other tier, right? And we're still seeing him kind of being sloppy with his hand, like great handle, but like, he'll turn the ball over. Defensively, he is what he is. He's not very good. He has moments, but he's just still not very good. I just thought offensively he was going to be more efficient. He was going to kind of clean up some of the turnovers, be a more polished decision maker, and that's not happening. So you just do wonder, like, can he get there? Obviously, that he has the talent to do it, but is it going to require, like, do you have to go deeper dive? Does it require like Clay or Draymond being gone for us to really see that? Does he have to be on another team for us to see that, or is he who he is? Right? I don't think we really can. I can't. Does he look like he got overpaid right now? Yes, but I do think like time's going to tell. And I think, let's say Golden State doesn't get to the finals or whatever, obviously that team's going to break up, right? Even if they make it to the finals, where that team potentially break up. I think next year, these next 2 years, you're going to see what Jordan Poole actually is, if he can become that. But I think right now he's not there, but he doesn't really have to be, because he gets bailed out. By Steph, or he gets bailed out by Clay or whoever. Like, he gets bailed out. So really, like, he can still be an immature dude, come up big for a couple games, and they still win the series. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I think one is actually get to the point where, like, hey, Jordan, like, we ain't gonna make the playoffs unless you do X, because there is no 20-point per game scorer that's out that needs to come in. Like, you have to do this in order for us to win. Then maybe we'll see what he could be. But right now, I just think no, he's not. He looks like he's been overpaid, but I think time's going to tell if it was a good contract or not.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because it's like you said, we're not talking about the finals. We're kind of, like you said, it's prisoner of the moment thing. We're talking about first round matchup, now a conference semifinal. So if they get bumped off, this is an aging team. Again, if they win it all this year, it's going to cure a lot. Nobody's going to care. Right. If they win it all this year, nobody's going to really care. So, but if they lose this series, and like you said, he doesn't have a couple good games, they kind of changes the whole trajectory of what it is we're talking about. So should be an exciting series. It will be exciting times. Like I said, we got the Ballislife game coming up on May 6th as we close this out. Just wanted to mention that we're going to talk about the NBA draft, and that coming up is going to happen pretty fast. So be on the lookout for that. I kind of wanted to mention this as we talk about Steph Curry, the Warriors and the Kings, the 7 games during the 7-game series. Sacramento drafted Tyreke Evans, number 4, and they had Curry in the same workout. So it's just funny how things like that work. They didn't really mention that, like we kind of forget that Curry was with that with the Kings, and it looked like Tyreek was pretty good. He was the rookie of the year. He was 25-5. You know, Steph Curry had a couple bad injuries, or he just started slow. And then, you know, also he got passed up twice by the Timberwolves. You know, we're not really talking about that much. You know, like that's pretty nuts. So
it's terrible.
The draft is like really big. Like if teams mess up, or you know, you got these trades. So I think there was a follow. Wasn't there like a kind of like a follow up to that? With the trade. Oh, I think it was the trade with Mana Ellis. They preferred Mana Ellis over Steph Curry. So I think that Golden State had offered, hey, you guys want, you know, Steph? No, we want Mana Ellis, you know? So it's like, it's happened 2 or 3 times. That's happened 2 or 3 times. Like, you know, like as we talk about how he's becoming close to a top 5 player, like, these teams are passing him up. He maybe was on the traded block. The Kings were happy to get Tyreek Evans at the time. He was the rookie of the year. And like, so it just, things can change so fast. So things do change fast. So we appreciate everybody tuning in with us this week on episode 160. Again, go to ballslifeallamerican.com. We'll see you guys this weekend. We'll see you at the Ball Dogs. So appreciate it. We'll jump back on. We won't take a big break as much leading into the rest of the playoffs and into the NBA draft. So I think that's it for this week. For Chelsea, Hopkins, Ronnie, Umana, we appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.